Mezzotint is the oldest technique for printing continuous values. Invented in the 1600s, it was primarily used to reproduce aristocratic and regal portraits. Only recently has it found favor as a creative medium. In mezzotint, the surface of a copper plate is roughed up, which holds ink. The drawing is done by smoothing the surface. The artist is pulling light out of the darkness.
The way a mezzotint is made is by taking a copper plate and roughing up the surface. This is done with a tool called a mezzotint rocker. The rocker has little teeth at the end of it, and as you work it back and forth across the surface, the teeth dig into the surface of the plate, raising a burr. This burr will hold black ink. This has to be done back and forth numerous times over the surface of the plate, and after many hours of rocking, the plate will be ready to go. This is the finished rocked plate, which is totally pitted, and you can't see any light shining off the surface anymore. This will hold solid black ink. At this point, you can start to make the image, and that is done by using a burnisher or a scraper and flattening that burr back down to a smooth surface. The smoother it gets, the lighter it prints. Once the image is resolved, I will trace my composition onto a piece of tracing paper, flip it so that it's reversed, because the plate will print in reverse when it's finally printed, and then line up a plate underneath. I'll slide a piece of carbon paper in between and trace off my image. This will transfer a line to the surface of my mezzotint plate. The plate is worked with two basic tools: a scraper, which is a tri-shaft sharp tool, which will scrape away metal, and a burnisher, which is a curved tool, which pushes the metal back down to flat, going from rough to smooth. So I'll start with my burnisher. Actually, I'm going to use this burnisher to start with. And while I can see things quite clearly here, in the beginning, they will not print very different. So I'll block in my image, and then I'll proof it, or print it for the first time, and then see that it's still quite very dark, and I will change it, lighten it up again. Probably do that anywhere from 5 to 10 times before the image is finished. The scraper scrapes away little particles of metal, and the burnisher flattens it out. So this is a little demo plate that we've been
working on, showing the scraping and burnishing, going from rough to smooth, and you can clearly see the light to dark. This is very rough and is not the actual final plate, which is right next to it. You can see quite a bit more detail, quite a bit more resolve in the final plate. All right, we're ready to ink up the mezzotint plate and print it. This is the exciting part. So, got my ink pre-mixed here, and I'm going to apply that to the plate with a brayer. First, I'll roll out the ink until it's even, and then bring it over to the plate and roll up the plate. So there's ink everywhere now, and I'm going to start to wipe it off with this fabric here, which is called tarlatan. It's an open mesh fabric, which will pick up the ink. Rather stiff. It's not soft like cheesecloth, although it might look like cheesecloth. Ball it into a fist-size roll, and then start wiping the ink off. Starting with this dirty tarlatan, I'll get the bulk of the ink off. And we can start to see the image coming up. Now I'll switch to a cleaner tarlatan. And at this point, we start to see the image pretty clearly. A little cleaner, a little crisper with each wipe. And then finally I'll go to a clean tarlatan and very lightly massage the surface. So it might look like I'm being pretty aggressive here, but I'm really being gentle and trying to leave as much ink in the recessed grooves as possible. And at this point, I don't see much ink left on the surface. Everything I see is intentional. And it's looking pretty good, so I'm about ready to go to the last stage of wiping, which is to hand wipe using the palm. To make the surface shine. And then fingertips, get the edges, and just clean things up a little bit. Very last stage, just to wipe the edges and get any excess ink off of that beveled edge. Plate is ready to be printed. We'll bring it over to the press, align it on our template, and now we'll go get the paper. So our paper's been soaking in the water for about a half hour. And I'm going to let the excess water drip off the edge. And then I'm going to bring it over here and blot it. Get the excess water off the paper. But we want it to be fully moistened so that it can go down into the grooves and pick up all that ink. Blot it twice to make sure there's no overtly wet spots. And now we go over to the press. The paper mark is also lined on the template. Now we're ready to run it This roller will exert tons of pressure per square inch, making sure that all the ink is transferred to the paper. You can see the embossed edge where the plate is. That's a telltale sign of an etching or mezzotint. And there's the final print. Plate will be inked up for each additional printing, but it should be stable for up to 100 impressions.